3 inches off.
I will. All right, I will call this joint meeting. I guess I will call the county EDA meeting first. And we do have a quorum, and then I'll let Addison and you the chair.
Yeah,
You call your meeting to order, and then maybe we do introductions real quick around the table.
sounds good. Yeah, so I'm Addison Barnhart, and we'll call the meeting to order for the City of Charlottesville, the Economic Development Authority.
All right, so I thought we could just go around the table and everybody could introduce themselves, and if you're a EDA member, what you do in your non-EDA time. So I'm Don Long, I'm the chair of the County Economic Development Authority, and I am a lawyer with Flora Pennant here in Charleston.
And Addison Barnhart, I am the chair of the City Economic Development Authority. I'm also an attorney at Grisham and Barnhart.
I'm Frank Friedman. I'm a member of the Albemarle EDA, and I am not an attorney, thank goodness. Oh, sorry. I'm retired. I was president of Piedmont, Virginia Community College for 23 years.
I'm Jay O'Donnell, Vice Chair with the Charlottesville Economic Development Authority, and I'm a commercial real estate broker with Colliers.
David Storm, I'm the Scottsville appointee to the Albemarle Economic Development Authority. I'm an attorney by training, but most of what I do is act as a chauffeur for 3 teen and tween boys, and an assistant scoutmaster, and a Cub Scout den leader, an assistant Little League baseball coach.
Hi, I'm Stephen Johnson. I'm a professor at the School of Commerce at the University of Virginia. Also in my free time, I'm a co-chair of Livable City.
Steve Hood, EDA, Whitehall District. I'm a retired military guy, and I'm a consultant right now. Jim Coughlin, born and raised in Charlottesville, but I work in New York. I teach at the City University of New York, so I just go back and forth.
My name is Jeff Morrill. I represent the Samuel or Miller District on the Albemarle County EDA, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm doing remotely. Virginia with car dealerships in Boston, but some combination of that's going on.
Good afternoon, Quentin Harrell, and I work for my wife.
One honest man.
And local entrepreneur. I own a couple of businesses, and I serve as the chairman for the Minority Business Alliance, Charlottesville Chamber of Commerce.
She doesn't want to introduce herself. Okay. B. Lepisto Kirtley, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors from the Rivanna District. And also Quentin didn't mention, but he received an award at the MBA Gala last week.
Right. Congratulations.
My name is Gareth Gaston. I'm the newest member of the Charlottesville Economic Development Authorities. Figure out what's what. I'm a longtime Charlottesville resident. I recently, not that recently, returned back here from New York and run around after a 9-year-old.
Bill Metchnick, County EDA Board, Rivanna District, landscape architect, ran a firm for a number of years called, I'm a land planner and designer, and ran a company called Land Planning and Design. Go figure, right? I'm now with Kimley Horn, Associates Local Engineering.
Chris Engel, I'm the Director of Economic Development for the City of Charlottesville and one of the lead staff people to the EDA. And Tristan wanted to introduce herself, but she's our extraordinary note taker at the table there, and also joined by Matt Johnson, who's back in the audience there from City of Charlottesville.
Emily Kilroy, Economic Development Director for Albemarle. And I've got Avery Thompson, Ashley Perry, Hernanda Reyna, Jeanette Ark, Sabun Ahmadzai. We brought the whole team. And County Attorney Andy Herrick is also with us to make sure we meet all of our obligations under the Freedom of Information Act.
All right, well, thanks everybody for being here. I really want to thank everybody for participating. You know, we did this last year.
Last year.
Yeah. I think it's really good for the two EDAs to work together. I know this cooperation has really increased over the last few years, and there's obviously a lot of things that we can work on together that support both localities. And I think the more that we can do things together and communicate and work together, the better off we'll be in terms of how we can move forward. And I think the presentation we're going to get about the innovation corridor ties into that, and you know, all the work that we've done to support the bio patients, I think really show that when we work together, that's how these things, how we can really be effective in economic development. Addison, I don't know if you have anything else.
No, don't really have anything else. Thanks for hosting us. Really
Sure, glad to
appreciate it.
have you.
Hope that this goes well and we can keep doing it.
All right, so our first presentation, I would just invite Helen Coffin and I don't know, Katie also. Okay, perfect.
You start with the PowerPoint. I have my slides in order. So thanks so much for having us today. I'm Helen Coffin, President of Central Virginia Partnership for Economic Development. Before I get started, I want to introduce you to my team members that are here. So first is Katie Delaney, our Talent Director, who'll be presenting with me today. Shannon Holland is our Go Virginia Director. And Miles Davis is our brand new Director of the Defense Affairs Committee. So we're excited to have them here today. Shannon, Go Virginia 9 didn't give us matching funds for this project, so Shannon's very important to us. I will say she makes CVPED jump through even more hoops than anyone else when we are trying to get Go Virginia money. So just know that it's not really a dotted line, it's a pretty hard wall that we have to climb over. I also want to thank Chris Engel and Emily Kilroy for their service on the CVPED Board of Directors. And also Frank Friedman is a past board member, so thank you for that. And Flora Pettit and others are generous investors. We appreciate it. CVPED was formed almost 30 years ago as a public-private partnership to bring together local governments, Charlottesville, Albemarle, and 7 other counties you can see here. Higher ed, so UVA, Piedmont, Virginia, and Germanna community colleges, and the private sector to collaborate for regional economic success. All of those groups provide financial support for our work, so we're really funded at the regional level. Next slide. Oh, it's me. I can do. Are you going to do it?
I can do it.
Okay, well, we can do it together. We measure the region's success in part by announced new capital investment and new jobs. As you can see from this slide, we've had just incredible success, especially in the last 3 years. As you know, AstraZeneca announced a $4.5 billion, 600 job project last week. Congrats again to Emily for her hard work and leadership, and really to the entire Albemarle County EDA for this amazing and truly transformational announcement. Supervisors as well. We also enjoyed a ribbon cutting on July 16th with Luna Labs in Charlottesville. So our fiscal year started July 1, so that's what I'm mentioning these. And then on September 29th, a groundbreaking for Athens Scientific's new building. One of our focuses is site development. CVPED's board wholeheartedly supported Rivanna Futures as a regionally significant site. In part because of that unanimous regional support, Albemarle County got about $600,000 for Rivanna Futures from Go Virginia, and also a 9.7, followed by 9.7 million from the Virginia Business Ready Site Program on August 1st. As you know, this site was selected by AstraZeneca for their largest manufacturing plant in the world. That's what it will be. It's amazing. I'm here today to give you an update on the innovation corridor. It started as a conversation about innovation and that we feel like we have a lot of cool things going on here, but what's really unique and different in our region. Emily Kilroy, because of the work they were doing with Rivanna Futures, they had traveled to St. Louis and became aware of work done there on geofutures for geospatial intelligence as a strength for St. Louis. We looked at other studies done by other communities really across the country and as well as in Virginia. We wanted to tell a stronger story. So CVPED markets the region all the time, but we really do it on a project basis for a particular client. We really wanted to tell a stronger story, have it be data-driven, really grounded in actual facts. I mean, what is here that's really here that we can make the case for? One of the things, those of us in economic development, everybody says they're a bioscience hub. We really are, but communities all over the country say that they are. So that kind of thing. We believe that our region is poised to be the next significant hub for innovation in biotech, IT, data science, digital technologies, and national security. And we started this before we landed AstraZeneca. You know, so if you say we, the proverbial, now AstraZeneca is all of ours, which helps prove our point. So when we were looking at innovation, like what do we think is cool here? One of the things is national security and intelligence. It's very significant with Rivanna Station, UVA's National Security Data and Policy Institute, over 70 defense contractors and the Defense Affairs Committee, which is now under our umbrella as of July 1st. So Miles is brand new with us. These assets result in an economic impact of 1.2 billion. So when I say Rivanna Station, hopefully you all know it's National Ground Intelligence Center, Defense Intelligence Agency, and National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. The next slide, you're gonna help me here, Avery. That's right, I got it. Another 1.2 billion, so they're both equal after University of Virginia in terms of economic impact on our region. We are home to the highest density of biotech companies in Virginia from all stages of growth. Seaville BioHub, I know you all have heard of that, is a very successful industry-led nonprofit. UVA, of course, is a major research institution, one of the nation's premier public universities. The medical school at UVA is excellent. The hospital and the children's hospital have many nationally ranked specialties. And in addition to the AstraZeneca announcement, I was lucky enough to also get to go to the steel top ceremony for the Manning Institute of Biotechnology. And it was just a fantastic event, really exciting. They're going to hire 100 researchers and their teams to discover therapies and treatments that improve life. And again, another game-changing resource for us. So in terms of the innovation corridor itself, with the help of many partners, including Seaville, Charlottesville, Albemarle, CVPED applied for and received $100,000 in matching funds for the planning grant for Go Virginia for this innovation corridor strategic roadmap. Pace Lockley of University of Virginia is co-lead with me, but could not be here this afternoon. The intent is really to focus on our unique competitive advantages in life science, biotech, IT, and national security, and develop a roadmap for the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to Katie to talk to you a little bit about our consulting firm. And I'm gonna leave my mess there.
Okay, well, Katie's coming up. I'll just remind the two EDAs that you all were contributors to the planning grant process. And I like to point out, and I know my EDA has heard this before, but when we do these Go Virginia matching grants, there's a match requirement that has to be met to be able to bring down the state dollars. And often it's a lot of work to grab the level of local match that we're hoping to achieve. And this one was actually oversubscribed. There were a lot of folks who were excited about the opportunity that this would give for the broader region. And so I like to point out that this was a really, really well-supported project. So like Go Virginia world. Yes.
Thanks, Emily. So as Helen said, I'm Katie Delaney. I'm the talent director at Central Virginia Partnership. I'm entering into this conversation at this point because I've been working with this consultancy on another planning grant that Go Virginia is funding, the BioBridge Talent Pathway Initiative. So Taconomy is the consultant who is working on both of these grants. They started working on BioBridge in February of this year, so I've been working with them supporting that grant since that point, and they kicked off this Innovation Corridor project in May. So it's really exciting that they are doing so much work in our region. They know Central Virginia very well, and they also are going to be able to spot and already are in big ways the intersection points between both of these grants. To give you just a little bit of background about Taconomy, they're based in Ohio. They are a nationally recognized firm. They do focus on innovation and economic development work in general. They bring a very strong national track record, as you can see some of their projects listed here. The St. Louis Geospatial Roadmap, they've done a lot of work in Phoenix with bioscience, and a 10-year innovation plan in Oregon. I have found them really collaborative and data-driven to work with. The steering committee that's listed here, that both Emily and Chris are on, are meeting with them every 2 weeks. And as Emily said, the steering committee is comprised of funders who are helping provide that matching, the matching funds for the grant. Oops. Thanks, Avery. So the economy, this is very unique how they're working with the innovation corridor, but they also are approaching it with a similar kind of framework that they are using with BioBridge. So I'm going to give you the big picture and then turn it back over to Helen to look at the specific phases that they're undertaking. But they're approaching this project with a kind of dual approach with the technology push, which is basically what is our region already really strong at, specifically with research. So they're measuring that. The data points that they're looking at are by research expenditures, publications, research centers that already exist, and commercialization activity. And then they're putting that side by side with the market demand, the market pool. So where is the market already demanding innovation and showing that there's room for growth here in our region? They're measuring that by R&D spending, patent activity, funding programs, federal funding programs like the Small Business Innovation Research Funds, Small Business Technology Transfer, and then also venture capital. So putting those side by side and seeing the intersection points are where Region 9 has real differential potential, and they're going to use that to build the roadmap that takes us forward and that they present next year. I'll just end with this 9-month at a glance, how they're breaking this project down. As I said, they began, well, the project kickoff was in July, but the steering committee started forming and the project truly kicked off with them in May. But that was the first week or two. They are currently in this quantitative assessment phase where they're going to spend 4 months doing the push and pull analysis. Months 5 and 7, they'll be moving to interviews and synthesis. Months 6 and 7, they'll be building the situational analysis, and then they will share their deliverable, which is the strategic roadmap next spring in months 7 through 9. As the date is written up here, we're expecting that at the end of March. And because it's a planning grant, that will open opportunities for implementation work on the other side of that presentation. So I'm going to turn it back to Helen.
Thank you, Katie. So I wanted Katie to share that with you because she's been working with Teconomy. Her grant is funded by, or it's a Seville BioHub grant, so it's not our grant. But as you all know, with all the success Seville BioHub has had, they needed some support to help get this to the finish line with the Talent Pathways Initiative. And Katie didn't mention it, but she's a PhD in education and used to be a middle school teacher. So she likes all the education piece. So it's been a nice collaboration. What I'm going to do is get into the 6 steps of the work that they're doing. Frankly, it's a little dry and boring. If you get bored, I do have a fact sheet for you to read. You can look at who are the steering committee and advisor group members so that you know who's involved. Because this is, you all have had the kind of what I would call a more fun, light presentation about Innovation Corridor and why we're doing it. This is getting you into the weeds a bit. So the first step was really just simply getting us started, making sure we have the right people, the right approach, start kicking the tires, understanding possible growth opportunities. And really as a starting point, the main question was, where do we need to come together with coordinated and combined vision to fill the gaps and understand our strength and growth opportunities? So that was just the starting point. Then the real work begins. So Teconomy is doing a quantitative assessment of really UVA research primarily. They're pulling 5 years of academic research publication, grants, funding, digging in on R&D trends across the university, looking at industry-facing research centers and institutes, looking at investigator initiated work, and conducting an asset inventory, capabilities, shared resources, and developing a list of research strengths and core competencies. They're really interested in the research that the market's interested in. So my husband is actually Jim Coffin, and he's a professor of political science, and he picks whatever topic he wants to research. And I would say it's probably not market. The market is not as interested in his research. Is that fair?
That vote of confidence.
So you're not going to get rich selling a book. Anyway,
You can always hope.
Exactly, I will always hope for that. An example, so this is from Arkansas and what they showed, the research competences for the state of Arkansas. What I like about this is it's fun and colorful, but also it shows you that what we're going to get is not only a similar labeling, but also the connectivity. What things are close to other things. We have gotten a preliminary one of these, but it's not available for the public yet. We're just not ready to share it. But it shows you the kind of information we're going to get, and we're not just going to get cool graphs. Of course, they're going to be able to explain it and make it useful to us. I saw Frank look at it and go, "It's just pretty, Helen." I like it though. Task 3 is a quantitative assessment of industry. So that's really looking at assessment of companies that we already have here, what they are doing successfully, looking at our industry sectors, looking at venture capital and angel investments, as Katie mentioned, the SBIR and STTR grant awards, patent activities, and trying to figure out who are the innovative companies here and what are they doing. They're pulling about 5 years of data and really looking to identify the high growth innovative firms that they can then interview and talk to. For Phoenix, they did, this is for bioscience patents. And so for Phoenix, they got really good information on what groups of patents, like under what subjects were those patents. And we're already seeing on our steering committee some of this data. It's really interesting. And it is, some of it we should know, but frankly, some of it we really don't know or don't have clarity around. So it's been very interesting. Task 4 is really the interview. So what they'll be doing is after they finish this initial quantitative assessment, they'll take that information, conduct one-on-one interviews with UVA researchers and research leadership. So Lori McMahon, who's the vice president of UVA research, is actually a participant in this project herself, as well as some other folks at UVA, of course. Industry executives, as well as leadership at Ravenna Station. So the DIA, NINJIC, and NGA folks are also involved with this effort. They'll help Taconmi verify the data, gain new insights into our strength and high growth opportunities. Basically, it's one-on-one interviews, asking about unique needs and barriers, and start really trying to come up with what those opportunities are. Task 5 is a situational assessment. So the first round of interviews is really to understand what's emerging in terms of industry opportunities. And the next round of interviews is to understand how ready the ecosystems are to support those opportunities. So this will be confirming the data and findings from the interviews. And again, kind of testing the initial strategic priorities and growth opportunities, make sure they make sense. Task 6 is really developing the strategic roadmap. We'll get key findings, recommended strategies, recommended actions for each strategy, estimate of resources required, so how much will this cost, and potential performance goals and metrics. As Katie mentioned, we should have a report by the end of March, and we expect the roadmap will lay out a plan for us to then apply for Go Virginia implementation money. So this is a 1-year planning grant. We can potentially apply for 2 years of funding for whatever is new in this. So Go Virginia really doesn't fund ongoing activities. It funds new ideas, new initiatives. So we feel pretty confident there'll be some neat things that come out of this report where we can move it forward. So we're really looking at desired outcome is really a regional shared vision for a technology-driven future, be recognized and innovate. It's one thing for us to say we're an innovation hub, but we want others to think we're an innovation hub. And I did have my first meeting with the site selector since the AstraZeneca announcement. For whatever reason, the guy had no idea we had just announced AstraZeneca, and it was a lot of fun. He was like, wow. And I mentioned the Manning Institute. He's like, wow, I had no idea all this was going on. So that was pretty fun. More traded sector industries, so those industries that are basically selling their goods and services outside the Commonwealth of Virginia, and new businesses, and expansion and attraction of new businesses, creation of new businesses, and expansion of existing companies. And we think we're uniquely positioned for success. Now, every community across the country thinks that, but we do feel like we have a fantastic location, a highly educated workforce, world-class academic research. That is a copy of the steel, or picture of the steel top ceremony at the Manning Institute. I mean, that is just a game changer. I mean, that is such an exciting initiative in itself. And of course, a great place to live. everybody says that, but I think we really are high quality of life and cost-effective operations compared to other parts of the country. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Questions?
In the instructions you gave to the consulting company, what are the sort of the goals other than get more economic development?
We want to know our sweet spots. So what is it that, so you look at Manning Institute, you look at Ravenna, it really started with Manning Institute on one end of town, the Commonwealth Bio Accelerator coming in, and then the county purchasing Ravenna Futures and the opportunities at North Fork, because it started kind of small. And then we said, okay, we've got Aerojet in Orange County, Eurocomposites in Culpeper County. I mean, what is it that's going on here and that really could be our sweet spots that we just aren't talking about?
And I guess my question is, did you say you want more economic development, but for whom? And are you thinking about the city and the county's climate goals, housing policy? I mean, how?
We're not there yet. So this is
Okay.
all about data. And
Okay.
maybe Emily or Chris would like to add something, but it's all about data at this point, and really, we are just focused on the industry sectors
Okay.
and what the research and the industry information can tell us. So that's frankly, the climate and the housing goes on all that, that's really more at the local level versus the regional level. And so for this work in itself, it's really focused primarily on the industry sector and the messaging.
So none of those goals were communicated to the consulting company to report back or think about?
Well, they got all the strategic plans. So they have your all's draft, they have the city of Charlottesville, other localities have
Mhm.
strategic plans with that information in them. I do believe that'll come up in the interviews too. But that was not in our RFP, so to speak.
Certainly when we talk to companies, building our plan, and I'm certain we had the same company that worked on your plan as well. So I'm certain when the city did their plan, there was a lot of stakeholder engagement, and certainly we heard a lot from the business community about those aspects as well. So it's not the economic development strategic plan for the county it's not also a climate plan. We have a climate plan, a climate action plan. We have a housing plan. So it's an economic development plan, but it's certainly not devoid of those other goals that the county has.
And Emily may want to speak to this, but AstraZeneca, one of the things they liked about Albemarle County was the fact that sustainability was such a focus.
That's great.
And they really liked that.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, we found out in just some recent conversations, kind of reflecting that part of their initial site selectors tell a joke that maybe you all know, that they're really more site eliminators than selectors.
Absolutely.
And so they do a lot of research and computer desktop sort of work before they even start making phone calls and sending out emails. And one of their initial cuts as they were doing their data bid was they wanted communities that had a strong sustainability alignment with their corporate values. So it was from their perspective a very important initial elimination criteria was places that don't have a commitment to sustainability.
And they talked about the first visit.
They did.
They were asking about that first visit.
Helen, I wonder if we could get your consultant to kind of share some lessons learned on the geospatial roadmap. I think we might be able to get some lessons learned for vegetation buildup.
I think Emily has done that, haven't you? Have you talked to Takana about that?
Yeah, we and that was actually part of our trip to St. Louis was to really gain some insights from that. And I can share some of our materials from that.
Good. Yeah, to follow up on Garrett's point, one of the concerns that I have in terms of the forward looking with site exclusion, rejection kind of criteria is that we have a high quality of life and a lot of amenities, but along with that, an above average cost of living with very expensive housing. And it seems to be getting more and more expensive, at least within our locality, within Charlottesville, Albemarle County, pushing people out, displacing them with the surrounding counties. And so like, I do think that from an economic development standpoint, it's really important to figure out when we're attracting these high paying jobs, right? What's happening to our existing workforce, to the residents of the city, right? Are they city, the county, the region, right? Are they being displaced? I mean, I see this in my neighborhood where people that work at some of these places, right, are coming in and buying homes. They're new to the area. I mean, I think most of these projects that you're talking about, the Manning Institute as an example, those 100 people are not going to be 100 people that already live here. Those researchers are going to be predominantly people moving here, right? And those are well above average paying jobs, which is good from an economic development standpoint, but it's not necessarily good for the existing residents that are trying to have pathways to careers. So I do think that part of the, I would say, part of what our economic development authority does in the city, and part of our strategic plan, right, is to have, what are the pathways for the workforce, right, for folks from all different kind of education backgrounds. And so how do we make sure, right, that we're not just digging a bigger hole when we're coming up with these plans?
That's a great point. And one thing, Katie can do a presentation on the BioBridge Talent Pathways Initiative, but she didn't do that today. But they're really looking at that, like for bioscience itself, what do you need to do with K through 12 schools, with community colleges, with high schools, with certificate programs? And a lot of that, I wish someone from PVCC was here, a current PVCC person, because they're doing a lot with that. And it's really interesting. And I do feel like, to me, one of the ways you address housing affordability is to have better jobs for your residents to make more money, and not leave people behind. Because if you have what used to be a decent paying job, it's just not enough money anymore. And so what can we all do about that? I mean, that's something across the country, everyone's talking about those issues. It's my family's in Joplin, Missouri. It's a very inexpensive place to live. They're still talking about it. It's just challenging.
No, and I would add real quick to Stephen's point that there's various studies that kind of categorize the number, but for every 10 jobs, say one's a PhD that's going to lead a program, 2 or 3 are going to be bachelor's level, and the rest are going to be community college, high school level type jobs that come within the community. So to your point, our plan tries to address some of that in creating those pathways for others to not be left out, but to be lifted up through that process. Interestingly enough, it was a quick little piece of the commentary last week from the AstraZeneca CEO, but he referenced that in terms of the 600 jobs, and then the 5 or 6 was the number he used, additional jobs that are going to be created in the community that will be at different levels, but will be created and the opportunities for folks. So just
which I think, well, I think that's great. And part of my point was, though, that if you're an existing resident of Charlottesville and these jobs open up, but you can't afford to live right in the house you grew up in, right, and you've got to move to a surrounding area, maybe even outside of this planning region, in order to have that job, right, that's not really improving the quality of life for those other people that aren't the person at the top of that pyramid of job creation.
Other questions?
So I'd like to add to that as well. If we identify that and know that we need to find a balance between the outstanding opportunities with this economic development, with making sure that we're not digging a bigger hole for our existing residents or existing workforce, are we confident that we have the metrics that monitors that? And who manages those metrics? Is it the city, the county? Is it the economic development departments, or is it other departments that are monitoring those metrics? Side note, I mean, an additional component was with Ravenna Futures. I get my understanding is one of the goals is to invite or to recruit more industry to come to that area, to Ravenna Futures.
Yes. Emily's the expert.
And so I'm just curious, like, it is a side note, but it's a bigger component. I noticed that we had 6 data centers in the region. Are we open to more data centers coming to this area?
Well, they won't fit in Charlottesville and, you know, the data centers we work with want 250,000 square foot buildings or 500,000 square feet. Some of our rural counties still want that. We, just so you all know, and Albemarle County has put that on hold and it's 40,000 square feet if I'm speaking correctly. So they're not considering larger data centers without the data center having to go through a very public vetting process. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why
okay,
indefinite pause.
gotcha.
I will tell you, the way Central Virginia Partnership works is we support the locality's economic development priorities. We don't impose anything on a locality. So we are here to support Chris and his team and Emily and her team and the priorities that you all as the EDA and the supervisor set for your community. And I'll give you a great example, is Madison County. When they first came on board, they were not a part of CVPED when I first got here. And they're like, we don't want you telling us what to do. I'm like, that's not what we do. You tell us what your priorities are, and that's what we help you with. So we do have a couple of counties that still want data centers. Obviously, Louisa County went very aggressive for that, and they were pretty big winners in their view from that standpoint. I would say Charlottesville and Albemarle are much, much less interested in that. We will share our leads with everybody. So Chris and Emily may get a data center inquiry, but we're not expecting them to respond to it. And so again, it's pretty local in terms of decision making. We'll share a heavy industrial project we know nobody's going to want with everybody and say, hey, let us know. We figure you aren't interested in this, but we let everybody know what the opportunities are.
Now thank you for answering that, but there was a little curiosity, which was a sidetracked, that took us off track, because the main component is the importance of having metrics that monitors our workforce and making sure that we're not digging a hole as we're creating more opportunity.
And that would be something I would say the locals do. We have the data and we look at the data, but we're not figuring out what each community or each locality should do.
Yeah.
We are doing whatever it is we're trying to reinforce what they already said.
Yeah, so it basically wasn't a question for you, Ellen, it was a question for.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm just keep talking.
Yeah, that's
Wasn't being fair to you, it's not a question to you.
Okay, someone else answer that question.
I think we can all agree that both the city and the county want local hiring as much as possible, whether it's at the Manning Institute, AstraZeneca, or anybody else. And I think what you've identified is really where Chris and his staff, Emily and her staff, can get involved working with these new employers to create pipelines for local people and to talk about that being a priority for us. I know we've already talked about it with AstraZeneca. You know, we have an incredibly underemployed workforce in the city and county. When you get waited on, or when you interact with your bartender, they probably have a master's degree in something. They can make a lot more money at new employment opportunities if we create that pipeline for them. The best chance for them to afford living here is to make more money. As my friend Rich Schuyler always said, the solution to poverty is money. They need to make more money, and we don't have the job opportunities that pay in that middle range and higher, unless you have a PhD and you're going to work for the university. So I think you've identified something that we on the local level need to do through our economic development leaders and our EDAs to create pipelines for our local people, not just to leave it to chance. Who's working with the Manning Institute right now? As Chris said, for every 100 researchers, there's going to be a couple hundred support staff. Who's working with them right now to talk about how do we get local people into those jobs? I think that's the challenge for us.
And that's a lot of the work that the TPI study that Katie referenced. This was a need that was identified about 18 months ago. We said, you know, Afton Scientific made their announcement and Manning Institute made its announcement. And a lot of the local folks got together and said, we have to do something to not miss the moment. Because there's going to be all these jobs. A lot of them are not PhD jobs. And good career ladder jobs. If you're not a follower of Afton Scientific's LinkedIn page, please like them after this, because they do such a wonderful job talking about how they grow their employees and celebrate their employees as they grow in their organization. They're about to bring on 200 more jobs, and the predominance of those are manufacturing jobs. They do not require a four-year degree. And PBCC is stepping up in a major way to work on credentialing opportunities and training opportunities. And so I think we don't have a full answer to the question of what are we doing, but there's a lot of groundwork being laid right now. And I think we feel hopeful that we'll be putting our community in the best position to be successful candidates in these jobs.
I have two comments. One, from having been on some of the BioBridge meetings and calls, what I was really impressed by is the businesses and their feedback, and how, when the consultant got into the weeds on these issues, which I didn't even have a remote understanding of, but the companies were saying, well, this is what we're finding and this is what we're seeing. And so I guess my one comment would be, looking at the advisory group, I would suggest that maybe trying to, at least in the interviews, try to expand the businesses.
Oh,
that they talk
absolutely,
to.
absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Then I don't.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You don't have a list of who they're in.
Okay. I didn't know. I know
No,
when we did
absolutely.
our plan,
No
we
problem.
had lots of different
No problem.
groups. So, and then I think just sort of the point of this, because I know we've talked about a lot of different priorities, and I 100% agree that housing and housing affordability is a huge issue that both the city and the county have got to confront. But I also think what we get out of this at the end of the day is, here's the opportunities. Here's where the things that we can be considering as that we can then evaluate to say, okay, is this right for us? Is this not right for us? Is that sort of a correct understanding of where we end up at the end of the day? And then, because there are obviously a lot of things that as an EDA, either EDA, we don't have the ability to do. I mean, really, it's at the next level up, the supervisors, the city council, that ultimately are going to have to make those decisions, although we can give them feedback. Very true.
Any more questions for me? Sorry about that one. Well, of course, I thought you were asking me a question. Thank you.
So on to the Charlottesville Economic Development Strategic Plan.
All right.
So you're doing this presentation?
Yes,
That's it?
this will be brief. No, I'm good.
I'm gonna get you clicker.
So I think we underestimated the interest in the last topic, and we're a little off schedule, so we'll try and catch up. A quick overview of the Economic Development Strategic Plan for the city, which has been in place about 1.5 years now. We had the same firm, as was mentioned by Emily a little bit ago, a Resonance Consulting, led by Stephen Pedigo, who was really the lead on it with support from his team. Very similar process that you all went through. I was on your steering committee, so got eyes on that. And I think we had a representative from the county, pre-Emily, on our committee. But in any case, a lot of research, a deep dive on the data is customary for any project that Stephen Pedigo is involved in. Significant steering committee interaction, survey work, and then one-on-one conversations with key players, and individuals in town. So a pretty robust process, I think, was shared by both. And, the exercise that we have set up for you here in a few minutes kind of seeks input on how the overlap, what you all see in the overlap. And I think you'll definitely see some overlap, and that emanates from the having the same kind of perspective from the consultant view. But in any case, this is really just our basic mission and vision. I can do the whole thing right from this slide. So these are our 5 goals. This is what we call our shield. We have one of these in our office. We look at it every day. The top 3 are really kind of the core economic development related goals. Entrepreneurship is a key one, of creating opportunity for folks in the city that want to start their own business and are equipped to do that, and helping them get there either with our programming and or with partnership programming. Number two, innovative and intentional growth is really the space that the Manning Institute and AstraZeneca and Luna Labs falls into. That's kind of bread and butter economic development without doing overseas attraction trips, which we don't do, primarily because we're 10 square miles and have very little kind of real estate and office space to kind of operate with. So we really focus on growing our own. We have a really robust business visitation program where we visit with folks, ask their challenges and problems, try and help them grow from 5 to 10 to 20 to 30 employees. A 50-person company in the city of Charlottesville is a home run for us. There's probably 20 or 30 of them. We don't have big operations here generally. And so getting into that space and helping grow our own is really a key activity of ours, and the plan recognized that. Pathways for opportunity is what we just spent a few minutes talking about, and kind of creating those workforce moments for folks to grow a skill set, enhance a skill set, and hopefully create wealth in that process. And we are focused on that through this plan, and we have a staff member that kind of lives in that space every day. There are conversations happening around not only the TPI, but the university, Piedmont, and K-Tech and city schools, early conversations around things that can be done to kind of play into this innovation corridor space, whether it's defense or whether it's bio or life science. The other two are kind of the non-traditional, if you will, economic development goals that you might see in a plan. Placemaking. We talk about quality of life. We talk about quality of place. Next year, if you didn't know, the downtown mall is going to celebrate its 50th anniversary. This hat is brand new merch for that. And it's a place. It's a place that the city made 50 years ago, and we're blessed because of that. We trade off of that. People enjoy it. They come to visit for that reason. And we want to enhance that, grow that, maintain that. And a lot of what we're spending time and energy on right now, not very glamorous, but making sure that the mall is in decent shape and doing all the things that add into that. And then storytelling is something that we do terribly in this community, as a large community, in terms of telling our story. Helen alluded to some of that. The innovation corridor piece, a piece of that work is kind of preparing us to have data behind a story that we could tell authentically to the world, so that we can be recognized as an innovation hub and potentially attract other folks with interest in investing in having companies and things like that. So that's a real opportunity, not only for the city, but I think for the region, to kind of lean in there and tell a better story in a way that's authentic to our community. So that's what we're focused on. That's what we live by. And I'll turn it over to.
All right. Thank you. Feedback. All right. So then our plan, that river image is in the city's plan. So that's the connective tissue, right, Vanna? So this is the plan that the board supervisors adopted. The EDA joined them for a session just in August. So it's a brand new plan. We're actually doing a sort of a tack on engagement with the consultant for some implementation work because we don't want it to sit on the shelf, but sort of a vision of rooted in innovation, open for investment, with a big focus on the mission on tax-based scaling up and redevelopment opportunities and career ladder job opportunities to deliver lasting prosperity for all residents. And then we sort of combined the target sectors and the strategies kind of into just keep it a tight 5. And so the top 3 are our target sectors. I'm going to lead in the intelligence national security space. That's really leveraging Ravenna Station's presence in our community, as well as the Ravenna Futures land acquisition. Goal 2 is discover in life sciences, really focus on not leading the country, but a focus on being a real leader in the Mid-Atlantic region in the life sciences space. Goal 3 is really around supporting our agribusiness and food processing sector. That is inclusive of the wineries, but it's a lot broader than the wineries. It's an area where the county, 95% of the county's land area is rural area. And there's a lot of production that happens and value added opportunities that happen. And how do we help those businesses access wholesale markets, scale up their business to be able to grow opportunities there. Goal 4 is about, it's called talent. It's really talent and entrepreneurship. And it's focusing on how do we create those career pathways that feed the sectors, and make it easier for folks to start a business. And then the final goal is compete for investment, which is really looking more internal. How is Albemarle County as a government creating an environment where businesses can thrive? And that's land use, that's taxation, that's any other sort of political policy area. And then this slide is sort of a transition into the small group discussion. So this was a staff pass at taking the 2 plans and looking at how they might align for opportunities for the city and the county to continue to collaborate. And to sort of, so this slide is really intended to sort of seed your small group discussion on where there's some overlap between the plans. You have a printed copy in front of you behind your agenda. And then this slide is really just again, to sort of highlight a couple of areas where the city and the county have had robust partnership. Some of these things are ongoing, some of these things are recent past. But we do operate, I think, from a space of, how can we pull each other into things that we think are good ideas, regardless of where it sort of started. A lot of our business community feels like they operate in one community, and so how can we work in a way that sort of echoes that sentiment and not be upset if a company moves across the Rivanna River, which is a shared border, from one community into the other. How do we not view that as a loss, but really as a win that we kept a business that is choosing to continue to thrive here. And with that, we have sat you city county intentionally so that to facilitate the small group discussion. But what are you thinking on time? 10 minutes? We're thinking maybe 10 minutes of in groups of, I think 3 is how the math will work out, maybe 1 group of 4, where you can just sort of huddle up and talk. You don't have to answer these 2 specific questions, but they're really just meant to seed a conversation among the EDAs on what makes you excited? What are your interest areas? What do you hope that we work on? In a year from now, what do you wish that we had achieved over the next 12 months? And then we'll do, talk about that for 10 minutes in small groups, and then we'll do a report back out. So don't forget to pick a speaker or on behalf of your group so that we can share out some of the things that you all discussed.
Okay.
Make sense?
All good. Do you want to go back to the other slide and I'll pass out? I'll give you guys a copy of just the actual questions, and then we can leave this one up for you guys to reference.
Thanks, Dave.
Three of us. Slide way better here. See that? Yeah. So you can hang up on these. You guys. Yeah. You've been here a while.
So the ongoing partnerships, where was that?
About 10 years.
I wasn't really aware. I know, like the trail.
Ideas. I know B has thoughts.
That's where. Start up. They could have been trained and have a couple of many. Instead of to change the genes and just get like.
I'm Matt Johnson. I'm the assistant.
I think.
I just, you couldn't see me, I just split it.
These are places where you graduate from.
Urbanization.
National Ground Intelligence Center.
Yeah, so I'm
Closest Holders Drive.
Yeah, Holders Drive.
So how do we call that was a city? The urban core, right? In the city. Now these city, but across the boundaries, if they know there are.
That's true. I mean, I think people generally have a sense they pay their tax, real estate tax, whatever it is, a city or a county. But from an outsider, that's really hard to understand.
I said. So those guys and then 5 years.
No, I think.
City. So how is that city? How do we get there? For jobs. How they go way to. Are they going to?
It's your.
That's fine. Question about. That's just.
Great opportunity.
What's
The city, like, county was involved, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but like. The city, I went to this.
I'm thinking of it in the. I worked in the county.
Everybody says the city, I mean, the partners there, the businesses were all. City. My wife and I were all contractors and.
We don't have
So they shared with us. Works, tons of students there, there was like 200 registered, a big parking lot, and it looked for no one there. And then it's just wondering if that's right, so in the county, that shouldn't be, it's one or the other, and we have operations of like, another one of those, you know. Provide resources or promotions. That's pipeline, it's like these companies, they place my own jobs,
Like that, not all.
they show up. I think it's small, but it's a start. Sort of
Pretty big. You're pretty big. Yeah, it's like you're more comfortable right now with walkable streets and like we are doing detailed blocks. The human being, right? There's a scale, there's a scale versus trying to cross 8 lanes of traffic, which is why we're doing a pedestrian right, right? Maybe I'll be sleeping on that.
Oh, no, okay, but. It's very. So. It's collaboration opportunity. We don't have to.
Right, and without
And I know they
serious.
have their initiative
subsidies,
but
and also the market.
People here, they can walk
Very well, you know, capable folks paying high rent, you know, there's a competition in the city next to UVA, so we have, I think, the opportunity to move the needle on several quality of life things that affect economic development, which.
Well, not maybe not the K-Tech example, but of collaboration. This we're busy in our silo and really we're not taking the time to reach out to EDA and.
I think, well, I think probably.
Absolutely.
So that you. Well.
Yeah. Tapped everyone.
Take something away from one person get something. Does that take it away from somebody else?
So it's not down for
There's probably a timing on it, you know. That's an example. I guess my point is, well, you could look at it as. You know, all the levers that need to be pulled, let's say. Being an attractive community for folks to live.
So
It had pretty much passed.
when I got on bus with like six.
Where.
What's last?
But you know, you've got.
So.
So it is attractive. Okay.
San
Francisco and you
I guess, you know, I'll be brief so I can make some.
Get ready.
You know, she did this whole analysis. Back in the day, it wasn't internet research. There was a book that actually outlined each community and city in the United States. Get back to environment, housing, economics, right? Health, implications, those things, right? So if we look at economic development, it can be just, certain of those levers. Economic development. It is also affected.
Issue, like there's collaborate, help that.
Like that's the same.
Yeah. Like if there are some things,
Obviously, we need to.
Gives the whole thing.
Why? I think in this area, things that attracted. Anyway. All those levers are things I'm just saying we should be collaborating all of them across the board.
I think it helps to have. Rather than.
Like we want to be celebrating. Excuse to it being.
Yep.
One successful.
It's
opportunity, yeah. Those three, I think.
They did this.
Mike Farmer, everybody else, we were like, you guys got another group, you know that, right?
What we're gonna celebrate, I'll let you guys talk.
EDAs can work on. Maybe the innovation owners, but it's fun.
Like figuring out how your
Experience of that.
That might be a little more than what we're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
but,
I guess I was thinking, maybe having, rather than just sponsoring things together, and then referring to
That costs money, not all of it costs money. I'm a big media, and social media, different things, but we collectively agree. Be X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Vacant.
Um,
A bunch of the next shopping centers.
Yes.
There's a place. I don't know.
They're all.
All of the city. I wonder if there's a collaboration. Talk about the future. If I sit there.
Yeah, right.
And they're. Doesn't help it.
Yeah.
Volunteer.
And that is, so they're all in the city, and then we've also got the husk on the downtown mall. It's,
Far off.
Albemarle Square is in the county.
That's way.
Seminoles.
Seminoles in the city.
That.
Seminoles in the city.
Small one. It's not.
Seminole Square.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, your 10 minutes is coming to a close.
It's just easier to yell.
All right. What? 1 minute. 1 minute report out. All right, I can do that. All right, we ready? Do we have our designated reporter outers? All right, so I will go ahead and start. I was our designated reporter. In a shocking turn of events with Frank in our group, we thought education was an area that we could do more on in terms of collaboration. So I think we wanted to focus on pipelines, improving pipelines to employers in both the city and the county, because there's really not a line for where employees come from and where the employers are, and working together to do that, to try to eliminate duplication of efforts. And in terms of what we want to be celebrating at next year's joint meeting, we look forward to celebrating the Go Virginia grant implementation funding that we will have just obtained. And then the other thing we talked about was, as a potential area for collaboration, would be maybe in terms of redevelopment and infill planning with some areas in both the city and the county that are commercial or retail areas that could be redeveloped.
Great, so I guess I'm half of the spokesman for our group, and a sign of group collaboration, we're splitting up the two. So one of the opportunities that we talked a lot about was an extension of the topics we mentioned earlier, which is just how can economic development authorities support the workforce development aspects of housing affordability, also looking at regional transit as part of that as well, and helping to just make sure that we can, in our roles, help educate people about the importance of those to economic development, right? Because I think often we silo out things like housing affordability with a workforce, with being a place that we can attract new businesses, that we can, and I think particularly retain businesses in the long run.
Very similarly to the other group, we talked about celebrating, hoping to celebrate sort of a redevelopment sort of that does cross the boundary there from sort of Seminole Square up through Albemarle Square, including Fashion Square. So we can maybe square those. All evening, tip your wager. And, but again, that infill development that we can really, between maybe adding some housing in those locations and repurposing those places for the 21st century and what that economy looks like.
I'll say, in the spirit of workforce development, our group recruited a scribe.
So I will do my best to capture everything and represent what these four gentlemen shared. There were several different conversations really focused on sort of what does smart growth look like in both the city and the county. And some of the things that were touched on there were just how we get better pathways to job opportunities, how we can really leverage the relationships that we have with incoming companies and existing businesses to better line up what those pathways are and get ahead of things. I think one of the comments that was made was you don't throw the ball to where the person is standing, you throw it to where the person is going to be. So how can we better work with that? How can we utilize work with us. Yeah, so it's a football analogy. You throw it at, if you throw it to where the person is, if they're moving, it's behind them, it's lost. You got it. So we talked about the role that entrepreneurship can play in there as well, and what that can do, and showing people that there are different opportunities within entrepreneurship, not necessarily just the types of things that they may initially think about. Finding ways to bridge some of the gaps that exist in some of the training that's needed for some of the skilled trades between sort of what's currently available in some of the K-12 and what's really needed as far as from the business community and what the roles are that different groups play, whether it is the K-12 system, whether it's K-Tech, whether it's PVCC, some of those. We talked a little bit about the importance of finding lasting jobs, not just sort of what are the immediate short-term jobs, or what are the jobs that are going to be there. And there was a little bit of discussion at the end as far as using the School of Data Science and really trying to leverage the relationship with them to help establish a better grasp of some granular data sets to give better demographic and jobs data for both the city and the county. With more data sets that you have, leads to better economic development decisions that can be made. And while there was nothing that was discussed in specificity about what would be celebrated in a year, it's progress in any and all of these areas. Yeah. That's good, man. That's good. That makes sense.
Just hire him.
It's all about the recruitment.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't go. Our group mirrored a lot of your all's comments. It started with a discussion about the city and county being different types of places, the urban density in the city and rural nature of the county and the character. That led to a discussion about placemaking, which I had to explain to Dee what it was. You know, just the quality of our community in general, and why people want to be here and live here. And how that related to, you know, the levers that we need to pull to affect that, one being economic development, environment, housing, you know, all those things that are in our comp plan that we address. And almost every one of those things, you know, are, whether it's infrastructure, transportation, right, housing, affordable housing, placemaking, are things that we should be and are collaborating on, I think, between the county and city. It has been demonstrated multiple times. So that was a discussion. Focused growth was brought up, education and training, making sure that we continue to cooperate on that, and creation of jobs. Celebration wise, I guess it was B said that completing the innovation corridor a planning study, but the point of that was really having that story told and communicated and putting us on the map a little bit more, making that evident of the opportunity here and creating jobs, right? Actual some move the needle on creating the type of mix of jobs we want to create. So I would love to also see, well, I didn't say this, some kind of, more in-depth analysis of the actual build out, the metrics of this plan, these plans, and what we're really looking at. So we have answers for folks on that. We've talked about that in previous meetings. So.
All right.
Thank you.
One thing I'll add, and this is something Addison had mentioned about an event that he had gone to, and I would ask our directors that if there are opportunities that you can see for members of the EDAs to participate in events or things together, and I like Piedmont Pitch, where I think that's what I did 1 year, and those sorts of things. But if there are other opportunities, obviously only 2 of each, so that we don't have any FOIA issues. But just something as a way to get us to work together. And the other thing is, I think we should ask Stephen, as he's thinking about as we've gone to him to think about implementation for the county's plan, maybe if he sees some collaboration areas in the implementation that we can match up with the city, since he also wrote that one, it's probably fairly easy for him to do. So. Anybody else have anything before we?
I just wanted to make a real quick comment,
Yeah.
since I hadn't heard this stat as frequently as tonight. That the county is 95% rural.
I was surprised by that too.
So, but what I was just gonna say is 50% of the population, as I understand it, lives in non-rural area, right? If not more, right, is in the designated growth area. So I think I would just kind of say that's a very different statistic, right? When somebody says it's a 95% rural, that makes it sound like 95% of the population lives on a farm. Right, which is not at all true, right? So yeah, so I would just note that as part of the storytelling that we have, it does put the region in a slightly different light when we look at the statistics that way.
Anything else? Do you have anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I think this was a good second attempt at getting everybody together, and I hope we can continue
Yeah, I
doing
think
it.
the discussions were good. Yeah. So, all right, well, then I guess we can adjourn. I will adjourn the Albemarle EDA. Our next meeting is November 18th.
City adjourned.
Yeah.
Really well done.
It's a good.